From Chandigarh tonight, I am joined by Ashok Khemka, IAS officer, and Anupam Gupta, his friend and senior advocate. This is a continuing Times Now investigation. Senior advocate of the Supreme Court, KTS Tulsi, is joining us from Delhi. TSR Subramaniam, former cabinet secretary, is joining us from Delhi. Prima facie, before I get both sides on, prima facie, what are you making of the information that is now coming out? TSR Subramaniam, that first question is to you tonight. You have the Chief Minister clearing the file within 11 days of the application. That file moving at supersonic speed. Every day one person signs off on it. You have the handwritten note of Khemka which proves that he began the investigation on the 8th, 3 days before he was transferred. All this information is now coming out in the public domain. Can the Haryana government, Mr. Subramaniam, only use technicalities to get out of this somehow?
Arnab, firstly, a lot of information has come in the public domain. It's another question whether private people are involved or not. I'm not addressing that question at this moment. Clearly, a listed company is involved, and therefore, prima facie, there is public interest in this matter. Purity of the stock market is of relevance to everybody. 2 or 3 connected issues have come. Was a transfer related to this matter or not?
Yeah.
I think it is not a relevant issue. Whether it is following a High Court order, we know that transfers are done routinely in states for quote-unquote administrative reasons.
Yeah.
But really because the officer concerned has been inconvenient to some mafia or the other, or some vested interest or the other, which is why the average tenure of district magistrate is 6 months. Before he can go to each block, he is out of the district. And this is not a matter between the officer and the state, it is a matter for public interest. But the government, as the law stands today, as the delegated legislation stands today, as the rules stand today, has the right. I don't know about Haryana, somebody mentioned to me that the new order has come October 2010, but they have the right to transfer prematurely. Yes, it's a right, and therefore, whether it was, I think in public opinion, we cannot erase the thought that the two are connected, but it is irrelevant. The fact is, government have the right, it can't be challenged, and unless, of course, there is a law, which I doubt, but if there is a law, that is one issue. The second issue is relevant. I don't think we can pass judgment. Yes, it's extremely unusual that what takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years or forever is done in 10, 15 days or a month. Very few files move with this lightning kind of a speed. If this is the average speed or double this is the average speed, for each file, we will be the best administered country in India, in the world, rather than probably the worst administered country in the world. All these are extremely relevant. But I don't think we should jump to the conclusion that Haryana government, other concerned governments, Vadra on one hand, who we can argue is a private person, I think with equal force you can argue is also in the public space. I wouldn't like to waste time on debating that issue.
No, but
clearly that company is in public space, it's a listed company. Now the issue is that is the public not entitled to know. I don't think we should be a kangaroo court. We should not decide who is right, who is wrong. But shouldn't the public know in rapid time, 15 days or a month?
Absolutely.
Through a credible inquiry. If the Haryana government, after all that has happened in the 15 days, that the inquiry themselves, it may even be fair, but it may not be credible.
No, but
what is important in government is you should do the right thing and appear to do the right thing. So I think the crux of what we are saying now, rest is all reasoning. The crux is we need a quality inquiry, high quality, undisputable veracity, covering all aspects, and then come to a conclusion.
Yes, I just want to put on record here that every scam that has been exposed, every inside story that has been revealed by this channel has been called various names, including media trial. People have accused us of being a kangaroo court, etc., etc. And I am not passing judgment. I just want to ask KTS Tulsi, before I get a rebut from Ashok Khemka and Anupam Gupta. Mr. Tulsi, can you, in this country, apply for a license? You apply for a license, which is Robert Vadra's company. It gets a license in March 2008. Then it effectively sells the license. In other words, it receives 90% of the value in the sale deed. But when it applies for the renewal application, it does not reveal that information. It therefore saves money in terms of license fee and can be accused of not divulging the information. If this is allowed, Mr. Tulsi, the simple question I have for you is, will we allow open trading in licenses, or is this open trading in licenses only going to happen for Robert Vadra's company? Mr. Tulsi.
You see, there is no prohibition against transfer. But I would like to give you an example. A certain important person applies for acquiring certain land in Himachal Pradesh, which is not allowed to be acquired by non-Himachalis. The permission is given. The permission is given to acquire land which is said to be a tea garden. Maybe a defunct tea garden, but a tea garden. It is recorded in the revenue records as tea garden, with regard to which the ownership cannot be transferred.
So why don't we speak of the Robert Vadra case, sir? So why don't we speak of the Robert Vadra case? Why go to Himachal Pradesh? Why not speak about the Robert Vadra case, sir?
No, all that I'm saying is, it's almost a similar thing.
No, I want
happened in Himachal.
We'll deal with that
and
separately.
In my view, that's not an offence.
We'll deal with that
in
separately,
my view,
but
that's
it
not
won't
an
be
offence.
appropriate.
Even if somebody makes a whopping profit.
No, but it won't be appropriate.
I'm saying even if somebody.
No, it won't be appropriate.
I'm only saying that
it won't be appropriate for the simple reason that I do find, without doubt, that your reference is to Prashant Bhushan. But because Mr. Bhushan is not here to defend himself tonight, may I please request you to come by. It won't be fair to pick up that issue in the absence of Prashant Bhushan, but I want to pull you back on this.
Okay.
That, sir, here is a situation. A company gets a license, then the company gets the money for effectively, gets into a sale agreement, sells the money, gets 90% of the money. Then it applies for a renewal license.
All right.
When it applies for a renewal license,
yes,
it does not say that we have sold the license. So you apply in your own name while you have sold the license. If you had if you had applied for a fresh license, you may or may not have got the license. A, so you couldn't use anybody as a front. B, you would have had to pay much more, crores of rupees in license fee. Is this not, as an esteemed lawyer for you, an avoidance of the legal procedures prescribed here by the company of Mr. Robert Vadra?
You see, all that I'm saying is that this may be very unusual, but this is what happens in 90% of the land deals in the country.
We can't.
This is a very small operator. This matter comes into limelight only because he is related to someone who is the Congress president.
No, but I can argue.
Otherwise, I am saying that.
No, but equally, I can argue that just because someone is related and someone happens to be Robert Vadra does not mean we don't talk about it, Mr. Tulsi.
No, we can talk about it, but all that I'm saying is that there is no criminal action. Buying land is not a criminal act. Applying for license is not a criminal act. Getting license is not a criminal act. If the transfer of license is not prohibited under the law, and somebody transfers the license, it's not a criminal act. Why are we calling this? We can't change the definition of a crime for the sake of one person who's related to somebody.
Are we doing that? Are we doing that, or am I actually speaking of a broader principle? I turn the question around and ask, does the broader principle apply to VVIPs and relations of VVIPs? Ashok Khemka and Anupam Gupta, may I please take it back to you? The argument of KTS Tulsi is you cannot single out Robert Vadra in this case. And A, there is no prima facie any illegality that has been committed. May I please get you into the debate? Ashok or Anupam, either of you, if you'd like to respond, please.
Could I respond to this?
Yeah, go ahead, either of you.
Implore my very dear friend, I would like to implore my very dear friend, Mr. KTS Tulsi, the state of Haryana, the Advocate General of Haryana, and if you like, the Attorney General for India, to closely examine the 1975 Haryana legislation which deals with licenses for colonization of land. It contemplates, subject to certain restrictions, transfer of the land in respect of which the license is sought. but there is no provision in that act, no independent substantive provision which even remotely contemplates transfer of the license. Under the rules framed by the state of Haryana by way of delegated legislation a year later in 1976, Rule 17 contemplates transfer of license with the consent of the Director Town and Country Planning, but it cannot be traced to any substantive provision in the main act. Perhaps this is too much of legalese, and therefore I am addressing it to my dear friend Mr. K.T.S. Tulsi.
No.
Let him examine this with all his legal acumen.
What is your broader point? Just translate that in simple terms.
The Parent Act.
Translate that in simple, non-legal terms for my viewers.
The broader point is, Mr. Vadra could sell the land to DLF, though the manner in which he staggered the sale over 4 years, with the state not questioning him, is highly dubious. But Mr. Vadra could not sell the land in the guise of the sale of the, could not sell the license in the guise of sale of the land to DLF.
Mr. Tulsi.
Now I would like to know from all those.
Yeah, I'd now like to also get Ashok Khemka's response, and then I'll get Mr. Tulsi to respond to both of you. Ashok, you are seeing this all play out. And some people are, perhaps wrongly have accused you of doing a U-turn today. First of all, have you done any U-turn? I want your clarification on that. Secondly, on the argument that this is singling out of Robert Vadra, which KTS Tulsi makes, I want you to respond to him.
Arnab, I have done no U-turn today. There were 40 correspondents outside the office of the Chief Secretary, and my communication with the Chief Secretary were privileged, and one of them asked that, are you satisfied with the meeting?